Check, check. Okay. All right. I just heard me say check again, which is good. Yeah, I think you just had to change it from desktop output for audio or whatever. I just saw the original vape pen. Yes, I can, which is beautiful, actually. Yeah, I can actually. I heard like me talking. It's a pretty delayed, but you know that should happen. Yeah, it's like a 10-second delay. Good. Is there a link for a Google Hangout that I can like send people? Yeah, it shows up as like the call or whatever. Nice. It's got the square. It's got my face. Oh, square's gone now. Square's gone now. Yep. It was just delayed, I think. Oh, nice. That looks really good. Oh, okay. So if you talk, it should pop your Avi up, right? Or well, because you're listening, so you'll never pop up yourself? Question mark. Like it's your thing or whatever. Alrighty, I'm gonna invite the Swede. How do we invite people to a hangout? How does that even work? Add people. Appeal to heaven. Cancel. Wait, how do I invite someone to this? It's just him? No, I don't want that. Settings. How do I invite someone to this thing, actually? Add. There we go. Jotun. Sad can't. Scroll.
Yo.
Yo. Alrighty, sick. I just want to make sure that his picture pops up when he talks or whatever. Oh, I moved to the left. Oh yeah, he does pop up. That's nice. Sweet. Yeah, it's cropping like the other people who aren't talking, which is pretty lit. Yo, Jotun, check out this fucking... Check this out, man.
All right.
Put that in the DM group.
Yeah. All right. I'm on my phone right now.
Sickness. Yeah, we've got Goth Alex's Jones, the original vape pen with a picture of Elmer's school glue there. That it will, which is fantastic. What do you mean? Oh, Jotun, you're gonna look like a default face if you.
What?
Your Google picture is like just a normal like weird ass anon face, but I don't know if that's your style, so I don't want to press you.
Nah. Hold on. I was just in the middle of changing it when you called.
For sure.
And I'm just kind of like technical retarded.
Yes, we are.
Oh, cool.
We are in pre-show, so I'm gonna tweet it from my alt account and then retweet it from Dasein.
That's how you say it.
Oh, but I can hear you talking? Oh, the fucking wizards. Waving your hands. It's madness. Got you. Here, say something real quick. Okay. Now I will wait. So far we can't hear you, which is good. Yep, you are clear. You can drink water. Yep.
I'll post a theory, and it's I think just Heidegger is sick of nerds. I think that's the problem.
I think
I'll get into it later, but I'm sure it's right.
I'll get into it later, but I'm sure that is 100% the answer.
just like Uncle Ted.
My boy Uncle Ted. I actually want to do Uncle Ted at a later point, but I also want to do Evola and a number of other people first.
Yeah.
It's also I'm having difficulty finding like a cohesive list of like what literature we should do.
Well, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? Because you have great just standard literature that improves your thinking as a human, but that isn't particularly any type of political.
Yeah, I mean, of course you have like, I mean, if Kant was in charge of this, it'd be like, you're all reading Goethe forever. And that's what you can do, right? But I'd rather it be more of a survey of like right-wing political thought because you have a very clear like academic tradition for like liberalism as it grows. And as it becomes like a predominant global system, you know, you're like, read your John Locke, man, you know, a little contra, you know, all this great stuff. But there's no analogy for
I
the right.
that when I was 14.
Yeah, because I think I read it when I was 16, because it's like that's what you should do if you're like a poli-sci person or you're going to get into politics. You have to survey liberalism.
Yeah.
All right,
I've given up on every single one of my morals since I was like 18.
I mean, I still think human life has value, so I guess that's still going strong.
Oh no, I've become extremely more moralistic, but I've changed every single stance I've had.
Oh, well, I think that's also natural, right? But it's not simply for the sake of being an oppositionist to yourself. It's if it's for legitimate reasons each change occurs. I'm going to get a LaCroix because I want to stay hydrated, but I'll be back probably in a couple minutes.
Yeah, nice. I guess it's just me and the one person who's dumb enough to watch this. So we're gonna take a trip to get some beer. So, right then, what do we have here? We have an Indian Pale Ale, Oslo Brewing Company, pretty decent. The Han Brewery, Inferno IPA, triple IPA, not too bad. And the Han Granat, some pretty fun shit. So the one person watching this, how drunk are we getting?
I am fucking back.
Nice. I'm entertaining the one person watching and just chatting shit about which beer I'm supposed to drink here.
Well, you gotta figure it out. It's P important.
Yeah.
The Port E-Girls has sent. All right, nice. The Port E-Girls has crazy amounts of clout for being a red Groiper account.
Yeah.
Ron, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. What's going on, fellas?
Oh, what's up, Ron?
How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you fellas doing today?
I'm great.
Good,
I've got my LaCroix. I'm feeling fucking hydrated. Also, pretty sure Storm King got waylaid because he was invited to a birthday party for a dog. Which sounds like an excuse you would make, but
that sounds like a white girl excuse.
Right?
Did his dog eat his homework?
This dog is actually attending his own birthday party, which is Batman themed because its owner decided that it liked Batman. I'm pretty sure that dog never made that executive decision itself.
That's the most soy thing I've ever heard.
I know. He was like, I just watched a dog eat a cupcake, and then people were kissing it, and I want to die.
I hate dog mouth. Dog mouth.
I mean, I'm a big fan of dogs, but it's like that poor animal, you know? That poor
Yeah, animal. Dogs are cool, but you have those people.
Pretty much exactly.
I'm a fan of the dog, not the owner.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, I'll also support the dog. You know, shout out to my boy. But the person that's buying like birthday paraphernalia for an animal is probably questionable. I don't think the dog really cares, to be frank.
Or if you dress it up in human clothes, that's just enough already.
Oh man, I just put the stream on it in 720p and it looks so nice.
Our avatars looks nice.
I know. That's because it's your boy here is actually a wizard.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello?
Right.
Who is it? Hello? Oh, It's my satanic groiper friend. What's poppin', sir?
Right Wing Reading Club.
That's correct. It's the sort of thing you really want to put on your job application, which is why I'm using my real account here, as you can tell. All right, we got 8 minutes of pre-show.
So we're not live?
We are actually live right now.
Okay.
Yeah. What's up, my inwards? Nice. My kid was really upset about the literature we've decided to review, and is just sitting on the bed screaming at me. Also, this is a controversial question, but I decided to name the kitten Soren after Soren Kierkegaard, but it's a girl. So I don't know if it's like still chill, you know?
I guess.
My favorite Twitter account is Kim Kardashian.
I'm gonna just pretend I didn't hear that, you know?
It's actually really good.
Oh, Kim Kardashian, that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious. I'm going to be so glad to like be using my mouth to speak instead of typing for tweets for 2 hours. It's going to be great. And also sorry that my keyboard is like the sound of a machine gun, but that's just what it is.
What is that, like 50 words per minute?
I'll have you know, I tested it at 63. Whoa. And I can pull up my fucking notes that I took, because there ain't notes, it ain't real. You feel? Also, first thoughts about reading Martin Heidegger. How did it make you feel?
Nauseous.
It's actually really fucking bad.
It wasn't too bad. It was a lot of concept, and I mean, it was published in 1955, so it wasn't necessarily the right-wing shit poster staple.
It definitely isn't. This is just something that I found because I was like, hey, this is about 19 pages, and I like making people read Heidegger because I think he's really cool. But I'm really super open to suggestions as to what to read next and like what we should be reading going forward.
Right.
I was actually talking to Jordan before everyone else joined, and it's like, how do I find a comprehensive survey of right-wing literature, right? Like, how do I find, because, you know, liberalism, it's like you just read John Locke and turn your brain off and it's fine. But but there's not really a survey.
I'm ashamed to admit, but I've taken poli-sci in college, and it's actually a pretty comprehensive list of right-wing thinkers.
You should DM it to me. Holy shit. You should DM it to me. Where are the white women, says Nick W. You know, that's what we're all asking.
This is a no Anglo women chat.
Implying Anglos are white.
There's this great tweet. I think it was Mike Ma, and it was like, "This is a 10 out of 10 in Anglo land." There's an extremely obese woman buying a hot dog.
Is that where she was sitting on the bench?
Yeah. Wonderful. Oh.
That's funny because there's a Twitter moment. It was in Korea. There's like thousands of protests because there's so many people taking snapshots of women in public.
Dude, Korea is such a weird place. I thought about going there to teach English as a second language, and then I researched it, and I'm like, that place is just strange, man. Like,
I have not to dox myself, but I have more Korean friends than the average person, and it's it's different.
It's different. Well, now I'm going onto all of my vast databases to look up the people with the top 3 number of Korean friends to find you.
I think I recently deleted my Facebook, so.
Oh, nice. I actually continue to have a Facebook because it's really useful for messaging people for like work and research and stuff. But if you look at my Facebook activity, it's literally like last activity 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's a bad place. Like
I'll go on there and just to see my liberal friends commenting on like the just now or what are the
like the
just
Occupy
now,
Democrat stuff. And,
yeah.
reposting
like Native American quotes.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's like I go on there and I scroll and I can't make myself do it for more than 2 minutes. I just can't.
You guys aren't seriously believing. I mean, you're going to Berkeley. You're not seriously believing these Native American quotes.
It's like,
guys, are you guys really as insane as you seem?
Well, IRL, I'm
like Americans.
Americans?
Yes.
We're interesting folk, I think. It's also difficult because like I would speak for the Midwest, right? And the Midwest is Sean is multiply. He has tweeted multiple times. It's pretty much that's how hell is. The Midwest is hell.
Midwesterners rise up.
Midwesterners rise up. It's bad. It's real bad. It's
the problem is it's so damn cold up here. We get no sunshine whatsoever.
Yep. I mean, I'm in southern Michigan, so like the summers are summer, but like northern Minnesota, like northern, like all those states, like Wisconsin, it's hellish. Like Blaiswell's from like northern Wisconsin. Like,
oh yeah,
that's why he posts like that. It's because he doesn't go outside, man.
That's why he has the polar.
I'm in Norway. My winters beat your winters.
I absolutely guarantee it, but you have like things to do inside, if that makes sense. You have a cohesive community. You have things to wake up for. But when you're living in the Qua and it's cold, it's kind of the double whammy that like breaks your soul.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, it's 6:59, but you know what, YOLO, we're going to officially start. Shout out to my 15 folks watching this right now. Big ups. My name is Dasein. My ad is Dose of Percocets. Just a quick PSA. You can actually at the Right Wing Reading Club account on Twitter. So that's at RW Reading Club. And if I retweet your content, then it actually shows up in this beautiful inlay on the upper right. So this actually makes it so that you can't post naked Garfield pics and I'll retweet them because I have to choose to. But that being said, if you do, I probably will. So I'll pass it off to Ron. If you go ahead and introduce yourself, just name off Twitter and the ad as well.
Okay. Hi, fellas. I'm Ron. The at is big_guy_Ron.
Groiper?
I'm Anti-Groiper. My ad is at ANTI Groiper and capital A, capital G.
I think there's only one more person to be introduced, if I'm not wrong.
I'm Jotun. My at is not relevant. I can't remember it. Good.
Nice. That's actually his ad is because my brain is so massive. It's at the_young_Burke with an E.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That we can. All right. So today we're looking at Heidegger's essay, The Question Concerning Technology. For a lot of folks, Heidegger is a lot. There's a lot of words that refer to themselves. It gets kind of circular. That being said, I think he has a lot of really important things to say, especially about modernity and sort of where technology is as it is today. Watch me importantly shuffling my papers. So this essay, we'll post it in the show notes after the show, of course, and I've tweeted it multiple times. But it's only 19 pages. For somebody that's slogged through Being in Time, that's a lot better because Being in Time is a touch more than 19 and a touch harder. So, question concerning technology. I guess I'll just give like a super hot take summary and then we'll just go around and say what were your first takeaways from it. What did you think? For me, this was my third time reading QCT, but I thought that what happens is like the first 8 pages, he's just talking about definitions and really making sure that the question he's asking is like the right question. And the next 8 pages are where like the hot ass takes come flowing, right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, so like it's this idea that technology isn't just bad because like, oh, it takes all the trees away. There's this really cool section where he's talking about like, so the ancient person that walked through the trees looks at the trees in a completely different way than the person who walks through the trees and looks at them as if they're just reserves of technology, right? We walk around and we look at the world around us as just reserves of like energy that we can use and apply and multiply. I thought that was really cool how he looked at that. There's also this distinction between the physicist and the artist, how the physicist looks at the world and how the artist looks at the world and how they're so different and how each way is important. So we'll be getting into the nitty gritty of that, but I'll just pass it off to Jotun. Like, what were your first impressions and what have you?
Well, I like to touch on the physicist and the artist.
Sure.
And he uses some words, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it's the two types of revealing that comes of modern technology.
Yeah.
And his problem is not with the, let's say, positive revealing that reveals the good side, but the, what was it called?
There's this like idea of entrapment, I think is his word. It's this entrapment where, yeah.
Yeah, but this is where it gets strange, because it's the challenge of revealing.
Yeah, the Herausforderung or whatever.
Yeah, which he looks down upon, which is the physicist way of interacting with technology, which reduces everything down to resources, even humans. And here comes my theory that everything is the problem of nerds.
Fucking weak nerds.
Yeah, because the ancient man was not a nerd.
No.
He was a gentleman and a scholar. He did not need constant reserves and constant growth and these stable reserves. He lived off the land and had a good time. Basically.
Timeless.
Yeah.
I'll pass it off to Anti-Groiper.
Overall, I thought the essay kind of Heidegger emphasized that it wasn't the technology that was really the subject. And I think he said what I got from it was, it's not the technology itself, it's being in the dark about the technology at hand. It's like you said about the trees. He's what's the word? It's about being in the dark about the technology, and that's what I got.
Yeah, it's
not
like
necessarily the technology itself, like, and then the physicist part. What I got from that is you build something with hands, like you would work with something, and you're not doing exact calculations. If it's exactly this, if it's not exactly this calculation, it's still going to work. Versus modern, if it's more abstract to where if your calculation's off at any percentage, your whole Hadron Collider is not going to properly function.
Right. And it's like this idea that as technology, and also to touch on your in the dark thing, it's like we're sort of like we're like holding the reins of the technology beast, and we're really not sure what technology is or like what its essence is or like where we're going. We're just like, well, we're going forward, so that must be good.
Is the technology running the show, or is the Hadron Collider CERN scientist running the show?
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, we'll pass it off to
Okay. Well, I'll be honest with you, fellas. I struggled through this, so please feel free to correct me and with any misinterpretations I have. But a lot of it, I felt like it dealt with perception in terms of, like for the trees example, how you see the trees, how one person can see it from one generation, and then come along somebody else from a different generation, and they see it completely differently.
Right.
And then to touch on what Anti-Groiper was saying in terms of, who runs the show. Because any tool can be misused if we think of technology in the terms of a tool, right?
Sure.
Because, you can misuse a firearm if you're ill-prepared to use it. And I think it's the same with technology.
Cool. So now we're just going to kind of go through it. Again, it's pretty short. I have like a really shorthand Google Docs notes that I'm going to be going off of. But he starts out with this idea of like, okay, so we're talking about technology. Are we talking about like your iPhone, or are we talking about something bigger? And this is where he talks about the essence of a thing. For me, it like rang my little like platonic forms bell, where you're like, okay, so there are a bunch of squirrels outside, but there's also like the idea of a squirrel, which is no one squirrel. So he's not just talking about like, man, do I ever hate how the tourists always take pictures of the Rhine instead of enjoying it. He's like, what does technology do? We don't want to talk about phones. We don't want to talk about pictures. We want to talk about technology. Another analogy he uses, just to like make it super concrete, is like, if we discovered a new tree, it would still have the aspect of tree-ness. It would have the essence of treeage, if that makes any sense at all.
What?
Go ahead.
What I got was the part in the power plant and the river, where in one part of time it's the river and what defines the river. There may be the river might bring fish. The river might be he said the Rhine, but then when you have the power plant, the river isn't defined by the river. The river is defined by the power plant that it feeds. And the power plant becomes more important than the river in a sense.
Yeah.
It's seen as more of a resource than a river. It's seen as the fuel for the power plant.
Yeah, this is like a super good part. It's on page 7. It's like the second and third full paragraphs. Basically what they're talking about is like, so you have this idea of like the river as like, okay, so Holderlin like wrote a hymn. Holy crap! Wow, wrote a hymn about the Rhine. Right? He wrote this poem, this epic poem about the Rhine and like what it is and what it tells us and all this stuff. But then there's also like, okay, there's also a power plant sitting in the Rhine. So I'm just going to read this quote because I think it's really good. So, quote, the Rhine as dammed up into the power works, and quote, the Rhine as uttered out of an artwork in Holderlin's hymn by that name. But it will be replied, the Rhine is still a river in the landscape, is it not? Perhaps, but in no other way than as an object on call for inspection by a tour group ordered there by the vacation industry. So he's like talking about when we look at the world with like our technology lenses on, it doesn't just change like, I don't know. It's not just like, man, I wish we could have more coal come out of our coal plants. We look at the whole world differently, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, and I think this brings us to this distinction, blah, blah, blah. So there's page 5. There's this thing he talks about that's like bringing forth in itself versus bringing forth in another. And this is the physicist artist thing, right? So physicists or scientists or people who are industrialists or whatever, basically what they do is they look at the thing, right? They look at the piece of wood and they're like, what exactly is the wood? Well, the artist is like, what can I do with this wood that will make it clearer to others what I am and what we are together? So like art advances humanity, technology advances what humanity can do. Yeah, and it's just like my alarm bells went off there because it's like this reminds me a lot of where we are in modernity, right? We have like power plants, we have nuclear power plants, we have the bomb. He wrote this essay after the atomic bomb was detonated, so it's like we haven't advanced really that much from like really old international law from like after writing of Magna Carta and stuff like that, and yet we have nuclear bombs. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
I was thinking about just 1955. From you'd say in that time period, World War I to World War II, that style of warfare was maybe around 50 years, and it was long gone.
Exactly. You could never ask anybody serious. There's not going to be another world war. That doesn't really happen anymore, right?
So you went from, oh, we're going to drop bombs, and 50 years later, gravity drop bombs are obsolete.
Right. Now we have like
that form of warfare was obsolete very quickly.
Yeah, it's gone. So just a little bit more on the whole, like what happens when we like entrap the world around us, right? Like what happens when he calls this challenged forth. He talks a lot about like he makes this great distinction that I think is cool for Ancrim people, where it's like the way that the ancient peasant looked at his field is not the way that modern industry looks at food production, right? Like, one guy like lives on the land, he wakes up, he has a bunch of feast days, he tends to the land. He doesn't see the land as like here's how many nitrogen particles are within this acre of land, and thus here are how many acres of corn I can produce within this crop cycle, right? He sees the land as like this beautiful, holistic object that provides sustenance for himself and others. And that's just like, it's out the window, and we didn't notice that it went out the window.
Yeah,
like, I totally missed that.
Well,
Like,
that's the part that goes through everything, isn't it? The standing reserve part, like in the Rhine, everything becomes a standing reserve, whether it's power, human capacity, like tourism. And in farming, it becomes wheat. Can I store this? Can I challenge the sun and harvest its rays? Isn't that basically the gist of the essay?
Yeah, I agree with you. And that for me is what stuck with me. He calls it Bestand as well. That's like the German for standing reserve. And there's also this issue where it's like, okay, so it's kind of chill and it's not super problematic if we look at like the oceans and the farm fields in this way. But what happens when like we look at common man as this way, right? Like what happens when we look at human resources and stuff? And as soon as I read that, I was like, so this is what open borders and abolish ICE and all of this stuff about like the economists saying, look at how much more money we would make if we didn't have borders.
I was just going to say, I think Gate Analysis on Twitter, Sarv Meats is his at, had the left will never, the right, the NRO right will never give up on their immigrants for cheap labor. And he was saying, I forgot what he said about the left, but he said the right to maintain this immigrants for cheap labor. And then he saw how it was problematic when you're just importing. You don't really care about, the CEO doesn't really care about the well-being of the immigrants per se, as long as he can bring them in for extremely cheap labor.
Exactly, right? You're not like, oh goodness, we're putting a bunch of families into like permanent indentured servitude to like, I don't know, like milk farmer number 326. It's just like, these are human resources, right?
Right,
like,
or they just go by social security number.
Exactly, right? So Mexico is no longer like a sovereign nation with distinct culture, language, and customs. Mexico is like low-income, tragic country number 5, and thus our policy towards tragic country number 5s are open borders and immigration for cheap labor.
Did you guys see the hottest globalist take on this?
Oh, hit me with it.
It's globalism is good for, it's family positive, because low skilled labor produces low cost consumer items, which means easier to have a bigger family. They literally reduce family life to consumption.
This is also, it's insane because, and then this is actually probably my favorite quote of the essay is on page 7. But the revealing never simply comes to an end, right? So this manner in which we force the earth to reveal itself, there's no like, okay, we figured it out, we're good now, right? Like this process of unfolding and like making the world one's tool for advancement, it doesn't stop, right? So you see this both through categories from like, I don't know, farming to immigration, but you also see it in like how physics works. And I think Heidegger's a real fan of talking about physics in the essay because it's like, it's pure science, right? It's supposed to be like, this is just the idea of science. It's not chemistry or anything like that. It's like, this is how particles move.
But at least not for the Neil deGrasse Tyson wing of it.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? And he's also like a fully commercialized scientist.
You guys you are coming around to my perspective. I like this.
Well, nerds are pretty much bad, but then it's also like, and then okay, if we're really gonna like,
which person do you think would look at a human being as a standing reserve? Would it be the person who has a great family life, good friends, loves people, or would it be the guy who's a fucking engineer, curved up in his office all day long, expected to produce never-ending, expanding results?
Of course, the engineer.
Yeah, fucking nerd every time.
I think it's also like, it's not like it's a conscious thought that anyone has that's like, I'm going to examine the world as a process of reserve. But it's also like, so this is actually a pretty good story. There's a middle school in my town that I went to that like was really low income. We're a pretty well off town, but like it was the one middle school in the town that had food stamps. And apparently, like, they demolished it 4 years back. And I was driving around the hometown with friends for, like, I think a fiance's birthday party or something like that. And we drove by the old middle school. It was completely demolished. And what was put up in its place is a STEM like a STEM magnet elementary school. So it's like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are the purest ways of looking at the world as a process of standing reserve, right? And I just keep thinking about, like, there's this the Henry Ford quote where they're talking to, like, the early engineers of the American education system is like, I don't want thinkers, or I don't want readers, I want workers. And the modern worker can't just, like, it's not like you go to a factory and you, like, do the thing over and over again. When you go to the factory, the modern factory is like the office with a series of, like, little boxes. And you have to think about the world as just this massive idea of reserved energy, and how do you bring it forth? And it never ends. Like, there's no point in which, and the weird thing about this is, like, when I'm reading this, and I don't know if it's my baggage that I bring in or whatever, I think of capitalism, right? And I know it's not super great in, like, GOP circles to talk about capitalism as a bad thing, but it's like the revealing never simply comes to an end, because money is the purely idealized form of standing reserve. It's like, this is energy picked up from economic participation.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are definitely justified critiques of capitalism. The right, you could argue rightfully so, doesn't want to go anywhere near it, because how quickly the nuance devolves into total communism or whatever. But yeah, the essence of capitalism is not just that of an economic system, because of what it divulges into rather quick.
The economic system is also strange in that it's like, it's no longer bounded really precisely to output, if that makes any sense, right? Like,
exactly. Like I saw a take by Nick Szabo, cryptocurrency personality, and he couldn't predict suicide bombing, couldn't predict Wikipedia editors, and I think he had one other one that I can't remember.
Juice.
Juice.
Yeah.
Can't predict them.
Economics couldn't predict IQ.
Well,
I also, like, if we want to be on the IQ bashing train, IQ is also the purest way of, like, how do we find the amount of intellectual power that is at reserve within a given human subject, right? Like, let's slap a number on your intellectual power. Like, put that number on somebody, then it's like, there were a lot of folks where somebody, I don't remember who it was, they were tweeting, like, I took an IQ test and I got a really high score, like 140, 145, and they're like, you should put that on a resume because it makes you employable. Right? Like,
yeah. Fox Day has Vanguard, and how he showed that Ashkenazis only had an average IQ of 103 to 105, and it wasn't necessarily just IQ, because if it was just IQ, then you wouldn't have IQ communication gaps. So it's not just IQ that leads to success. 180 IQ person isn't going to get a bunch of normal bell curve people.
Is the Groiper cutting out for anyone else but me?
Anti-Gripper, you are cutting out just a touch.
Okay. Yeah, I
don't know if
walked
it's on your
outside
stuff or not.
I'm on my phone.
That's
Yeah, same, bro.
Gang. So this is just a quote that I liked, because when you read it by itself, it just, like, makes you shake your head and wonder why you're reading Heidegger for any reason. So this is on page 10, first full paragraph. In framing means the gathering together of that setting upon which sets upon man, i.e. challenges him forth to reveal the real in the mode of ordering as standing reserve. And it's one of those things that you read and you're like, man, what the fuck did you just tell me? Like, what does that even mean? I also want to talk a little about, because we had the DM group saying, like, okay, so what's this distinction between, like, ancient technology and modern technology that he makes?
Yes.
Like, there was some YouTube thing that was like, well, really, modern technology is just different in that it expedites the process a little bit. And I'm like, I disagree with that YouTuber's point. Like, I think he got it wrong. I'm pretty sure he got it wrong.
Yeah.
Because what he
what
talks
in the YouTube video? But could you just explain it to me?
basically, so you know how he talks about the four manners in which technology comes to be, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And his argument was that it is only the latter two that technology utilizes, and it cuts out the earlier two. So, like, technology gives up to capitalism the concept that, like, you have to find the stuff to make the thing you want to do. You just trust that to the market. And I disagree with him. And I think that Heidegger is saying what modern technology does is it demands of the world to change. Like, it transforms the world that it's using, right?
It's a revealing.
Yeah, it's a revealing of something that wasn't already there. So, like,
Like-
his example is like, okay, so the windmill is ancient technology because it just sits there. It doesn't change the wind.
Right.
You know?
The fish trap in the river.
Right. Yeah. Like the water keeps flowing, the fish keeps swimming. You just yoink a few out. It's whatever. But like when you build a dam in the Rhine that's for a power plant, you change the flow of the river fundamentally. You slow it down. You make like a small lake above it. All of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like I think that's where he sees the door opening into modernity, where you're changing stuff, where the world is being demanded of. If that makes any
It's
sense. At all.
yeah. It's what Kaczynski said. You mold to the technology. The technology doesn't mold to you.
Well, I might be kind of retarded, but here's a take. The four causal truths that used to be in ancient Greece are no longer as important as they're revealing when it comes to modern technology.
Sort of, yeah. He says so. Basically, his claim is he's like so. He sets out the four, and just for viewers' sake, I'm gonna read them off and what they are. Causa materialis is the matter out of which the technology is formed. So his example is a chalice. It's the silver that makes the chalice. The causa formalis is the shape into which the material enters. That's the shape of a chalice. Causa finalis, the end that the substance serves. That's like the ritual that you use the chalice for. Causa efficiens is the thing or subject that creates the tech. So that's like the dude that hammered the chalice into shape out of silver. His claim is that like, yeah, all of these are really relevant when you're making hammers and stuff, but when you get into the realm of like nuclear reactors, it doesn't work as well. What you have now is like this highly technical level of revealing. You're looking at the world
Right.
around you and you're saying, how do we reveal that being which is a nuclear reactor? You don't just like hammer it in a forge, you know? And actually back to Anti-Griper's like earlier introductory comments where it's like, you need really exact science for modern technology. Like you fuck up one decimal in one place, that nuclear reactor is going to blow up and everyone's going to die. But if you're making the chalice, if you like you hammer it at the wrong angle by 0.1, no one really cares. So his take is like modern technology is just it's revealing. It takes away all this minor stuff. And also I think you look at art, because I think this is like he has this door that's like, here's where we let in the hope, everybody. Right? Like this is where it's gonna be okay. Is art, right? Because art reveals some truth about ourselves. And I think art has all those four forms where like you actually look at the painting and you make the painting and all that shit. But also I think art is really shitty in modernity, and I haven't seen good art in like a really long time. So so that's my like really ranty way of answering the question is I think he just takes the four, collapses them all into revealing because technology is too precise to take those four.
Right. It's like to clone. If you watch Jurassic Park, to clone these animals, well, you have to find stable living or frozen cells from a mammoth. It's not just you go mine it out of the ground. You got to find that. You got to find a close animal to implant these cells into, and then you have to then go on and breed your mammoth. So it's not just, we mine it out of the ground, we forge it into shape. There's so much nonlinear procedures that go into it.
Yeah. Also, this is bringing in outside Heidegger material, but there's this idea of like the tool which is at hand. And I think that a lot of Heidegger's idea about like working and creating things is how we learn more about ourselves, right? Like it's how because like if we're going to be honest, the human being is a mystery more so than anything else. Like we really don't get how we work. We like to make vague gestures, like weird psychological, studies, but they're all kind of trash.
Right.
But it's like, okay, so if you take out these four steps, you're just doing a highly technical process, and you don't learn more about yourself, and you don't learn more about the human subject when you're doing these highly technical processes, right? Like,
Yeah.
which goes
Why
back
do you
to
want the cat? Why do you want the in real life cat girls?
oh yeah, exactly. It's like okay, I actually the last show I went on, I was ranting about cat girls, but we're gonna make it a theme now.
Like the ones on Linkoa's timeline?
Linkola retweets a lot, and I'm not sure it's because I showed up and I was like, "Where are the cat girls?" And he's like, "There are no cat girls."
I'm there. I'm like anime Tibby. I'm like Traps. I'm like nah.
Nah, bro. Like, I like the takes, but can we just turn off the retweets for the boys?
Yeah.
But it's also like, okay, so if you had to like very carefully make a cat girl, halfway through that process, you'd be like, you know what, this is too fucked up, and I'm not about to do this. No way. Right?
Yeah. Just to
Like,
please someone
I would
else.
hope so.
yeah, right? Like you'd hope that a human subject would be like, you know what, I'm putting cat ears on this person. Shit's just weird.
You should have some semblance of humanity where you would stop yourself pretty
It brings
early
to
on and
mind-
say, "What the hell am I doing?"
Because you have to
brings
kidnap
to
somebody.
It brings to mind these doctors at like these like postmodern cosmetic doctors that will pretty much do whatever you want. The ones that are giving the sex changes to the 4-year-olds in Australia and whatnot. It's like, who are these people and where do they live? Where do they live?
Like,
Hell, they're demons.
Yeah, exactly.
Unironically.
Unironically.
unironically demons, but it's also like if you're, and we'll go back to the reading again, but it's like if you're a person that looks at another person and says, okay, yeah, this person's guardian who is official, like their official guardian wants them to have a sex change, which will ruin the rest of their lives and make them addicted to big pharma's hormones, literally for the rest of their lives until they kill themselves at the average age of 24. I'm going to do it because it'll make a fat paycheck, and then I can take the bonus and take the wife out.
Yeah.
There's no way you can address another person as a human and do that. Like, it can't work. Like,
Who are these spook doctors?
what, how do you give a degree to somebody and not immediately revoke it upon that, right? I mean,
unironic demons, like what's that?
It's also like and I don't want to like get too big into the women question, but you see this idea that like we want more women to work because then there will be more people working and they can consume more goods, and that's good, right? Like that's like the end, and then you like wash your hands and you're like, well, more people are consuming the things and therefore we're winning. Like,
Yeah.
That's viewing humanity as a standing reserve. You're like seeing the potential of humanity and you're like, there is lacking potential in the feminine specter.
Or even the libertarian view, you choose to engage in what you want to engage with, and as long as you're left alone. So as long as I don't see this happening, I'm fine. As long as this not happening in my city or in my state, or I'm not around it when it's happening, therefore I'm okay because of just what I'm doing. But this is still going on.
It's still going on, right? Like it's still real, even though you're not viewing it.
And these are still, it's like, it does take some of the humanity out of it. Like, 10 million people are dying from drug abuse in this hypothetical libertarian world, but I've never seen a single person die. So,
well, that's the ultimate boomer take, though. It's like the boomer thing. Well, I'm going to die, so this mass immigration problem won't affect me.
Right. As long as it doesn't affect me.
Right.
But the fundamental problem with that is people couldn't have had that opinion for you to be able to have that take. Like, people had to think about future generations just to be where you are now.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is sort of where the question enters. Like, I think also in all generations of all humanity, there are going to be folks like that where they're like, well, I don't really care what happens to the oceans because, that's the next generation's problem. But it's also like, how do you get such a prevalence of them to like...
Yeah, that's the issue, is the prevalence. There will always be the outliers. But this is a dominant thought.
Yeah, it's like a common thought to just be like, well, fuck them. Like,
well, I would say that goes back to the technology problem, to where you have the technology to where there's not skin in the game anymore. Like I think I saw a research paper that showed mostly all living species are on the constant verge of starvation, like 99.999%. So if you don't have to worry about these things, and technology has the point to where you can just shoot heroin and eat cheeseburgers all day, this selfish survival strategy becomes a little bit more logical.
It's also, and that goes back to, it's like, so how do we get this prevalence of people, and like, how do you fight just dominant ideologies being really like borderline suicidal at a societal level, right? Like,
Yeah.
If 75% of your population genuinely believes "fuck them" is like an adequate answer, you're not going to make it very far. Yeah, like, it's not going to go well for you. That being said, it's like, so how do we develop and how do we get better? And I think Heidegger's answer is always like, it's art, right? You have to have good art that shows you what humanity is capable of and why it's worth living, like why it's good for other people to live, why all this stuff. It's like, how do we move up the consciousness in woke Twitter speak, right? It's like we have to have good art. We have to have good artists that actually go out into the world and make things that are truly beautiful that make us want to be alive. And,
right.
You know, someone is screaming in the background.
Who's got an 8-year-old locked up?
Right.
Who? I'm just flipping to the pages where he talks about art because I think...
Right.
Yeah, okay, so one more part about this whole idea of inframing and why it's a real big bad. Thus, the challenging in framing not only conceals a former way of revealing, but it conceals revealing itself. And with that, it conceals. So basically, it's like when you look at the world with a technological lens, it takes away that 4-part thing that we talked about earlier, right? You just don't have that anymore. You don't have the ability to say, well, how do we go out into the world? We like... oh, I don't know, man. We just like go and make some chalices, and then we learn more about ourselves through this very finite process. Like, that's gone. It's not really there anymore. It's in like artsy farmers market things where you like buy the crystals from the hippie lady, but beyond that, it's not really impactful.
Right,
So,
right.
Go ahead.
P.T. Carlo had the essay the other day for the article about dadism.
Yeah.
And he was like, if your plan of action sounds like something out of a women's Bible study group, it's not going to beat these globalists on any level, or whatever deep state or whatever you call it.
Yeah, whatever your other is, right? Like whatever that thing is, you can't just like wave your hands and be like, you gotta believe in yourself.
Right. Right. I would even extend it beyond the realm of a woman's Bible study into, if you've read it in a book, it won't help you. You know, in terms of like a self-help book kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, self-help books are for the subject, right? They're for the individual. Like, there are self-help books for societies and for humanity at large, and like one of them is Heidegger's The Question Concerning Technology. Like, but you don't really pick that up in the self-help section at Barnes and Noble.
No, you don't.
Right. You don't pick up Bronze Age mindset at Barnes and Noble.
You don't pick up the gorilla mindset at Barnes and Noble.
Dude,
right.
I haven't been to Barnes and Noble in like 2 years, but I swear to God, if they carry Bab's book, I'm pulling up.
I know they carry Cerno's book, but I don't think it's.
Do they carry Cerno's book?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
No shit.
All 3 of them, I believe.
He has 3 books. I thought he just had
3
the
books?
one.
Yeah, he has multiple books.
Why? What does he have to contribute?
What does he have to say?
It was like, yeah, it was more election boomer quality content.
Oh, got you.
Well,
just,
the boomer quality books are absolutely the worst. There's no substance to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he thrives on, is the boomer tier, normie Republican stuff.
He's definitely pivoted more to the mainstream. Like, some of his old stuff could actually be considered relevant, but the stuff now, he's mainly just going for the follower count.
Yeah.
Which, you got to respect a man's grind, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that Twitter mob he organized the other day against James Gunn, that was exceptional.
Wait, me?
Oh, absolutely.
No, Mike Cernovich.
That was good. That was
no,
good.
I didn't organize any Twitter mob. I wish I had that kind of clout to do that. I would do that. I would do that so much more often.
I just don't want to get banned, to be very frank.
I don't either.
right? I just enjoy it. I enjoy
Like
using Twitter.
unironically, I joined Twitter to get banned, and then I meet all these great people on here. I'm like, I don't really want to get banned
You're
anymore.
like, oh god damn it, Jack.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I got sucked into it.
Just to touch on the art thing again, he has a lot to say in page 18. Basically, he's talking about like, yo, what the fuck is going on in the background?
That's not me, dude.
Dude, I guarantee you it's Jotun. I will give you my left nut.
I don't want it, man. You keep it.
Hey, there's a lot of valuable DNA in there. You'll bear strong children.
Yes. Many years of breeding have led to that left nut.
So he talks about art as like techne. So it's this Greek word that's saying like it's a single manifold revealing. So it's not just like, oh, you made the piece of art, or you know what? There's this woman on Twitter that really bothers me, where basically she has this assertion that like the female body is art, and being naked in public spaces is asserting that the female body is art. So the issue with that and why it isn't good art, right? Because art isn't just an opinion; it can be shitty. Why it isn't good art is because it teaches us nothing about ourselves, and there's no professional craftsmanship to it, right? Like it doesn't take years of training and years of dedication to a craft to like put dollar bills on your titties and walk into a Harvard seminar. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
What I was gonna say is I think there's multiple valid ways to look at art. What did Hegel say? It's the expression of ideas. But if you see some of these, you just look at a painting or you look at these marble statues and you just see the skill. It's also a display of skill. So it's a display of multiple things that can be considered virtuous or whatnot.
I think, yeah, you're right, where it's like there are multiple things, there are multiple categories of virtue that you can cover with the work of art. That being said, like it still does it reveal some fundamental truth, and does it take some aspect of technical mastery to produce, right? And
Right.
if those two things are there, then it's like that's art. I can not like its message, right? I can dislike what it asserts, but it's still quality art. Also, if y'all want to ask us questions who are in the viewers, you have to at the RW Reading Club account on Twitter, and I'll retweet you blindly. I love having a new account because I just follow back everybody. Don't need to give a hoot. It's beautiful. But this whole idea of art being like, how does it reveal and teach us more about ourselves so we're less shitty? So we don't have a bunch of boomers saying we'll worry about the oceans in 100 years. I'm not convinced there's good art like there. And I feel like I would have seen it at one point if there was, but it seems like art itself has become this realm that is like, what's the word that we've kept using? It's like it's entrapped, right? Like art itself has become commodified and it's now traded and is now marketed. And if it's not marketable, then it doesn't have value, right? So like it went from grain being entrapped to mankind being entrapped to art being entrapped, and it's like that's the method by which we learn more about ourselves, and now it's been technologyified.
Yeah, if Heidegger walked through any modern art museum, I don't think he'd be impressed, to put it lightly.
Yeah, it's like I actually remember we were in Germany like when I was a teenager, and it's like we went to a modern art museum, and it's like some dude just hung a bunch of dirty clothes on the ceiling, and that was an exhibit. Like, that was it. He just, like, put the dirty clothes on the ceiling and he called it laundry.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't teach us about ourselves. It doesn't advance consciousness. It doesn't make us better humans. And I also, I think Heidegger wouldn't like me using the word better humans because we don't know what better is, right? But it's like, it doesn't move us into a new direction, I guess.
Yeah, you can say what it isn't. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a certain idealism behind better, right? Like, what do we want to be better as? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Without going into a long-winded rant about good and evil, you could probably consider better as like the early man's better is not dying from the environment or like surviving.
Yeah.
But modern man, like I said, the technology is to where you don't have that kind of skin in the game to where you're just trying to survive.
And it's like, and it feels like we've gotten really good at being alive, but like that's the past 4,000 years game. And like we won it very clearly already, right? Like we're good at being alive and taking up space and breathing and being crammed into small apartments. Like
Right.
we got that down, but we don't know what the next game is, right? And I think a lot of like modern statecraft and a lot of like modern political speech really shows that, where it's like the right is like, we're going to give you jobs and also we also like our country. And the left is like, we're going to give you more jobs than the other guys. And we also kind of don't like our country. And it's just like two drooling Wojaks like staring at each other.
Yeah.
Well, there's a certain amount of stagnation. I think that's what you're alluding to. That's definitely happened.
Yeah. And I think that Heidegger's claim would be like, how do we get out of this stagnation? And the very clear answer would be like through quality art.
Yeah.
But,
well, art doesn't do you very much good when there's a Hellfire missile coming through your roof.
but like, as we talked about a while back, it's like the Hellfire missiles aren't really going to be coming through the room. There isn't going to be a new world war, right? Like,
well, I'm not saying a giant world war, but in a smaller microcosm.
I think in terms of art, there's a certain amount of societal reflection that art carries, right? Because if you take a look at art, back when society was moral, the art was so-called moral, right? It reflected that. Now that we've moved away from that to more amoral society, the art certainly reflects that. So I'm not so sure if it's having quality art or if it's, you know what I'm saying is it's the chicken or the egg kind of thing.
Well, you could say art reflected virtue, but now there's a postmodern conception where virtue doesn't really exist. So do whatever you want.
Exactly.
I think there is the argument where it's like in a non-virtuous society, virtuous art cannot be produced.
Right. Postmodernist, there's no right or wrong.
But like if you're wearing your Heidegger hat, it would be like postmodernism was arrived to by postmodernist works of art and literature. Right. And like maybe his point would be that maybe postmodernism is what we're supposed to do. However, I would be like scream around with my hair on fire if that were the case. Right. But it's like, sure, we don't have a great society for producing quality art, but how else are we going to make society a better place, or how else are we going to make ourselves better people without quality art?
Right.
Right.
And I'm not sure what that answer is, right? Like, how do you thread that needle, I guess, is really difficult for me to understand, at least.
Well, you talked about it earlier that art has been marketed, right?
Exactly. So it's been a trap.
With a market system, there has to be some sort of basic intrinsic value that it holds. And if we live in an amoral, non-virtuous society, I don't see how that would happen. You know what I mean?
Well, I have a take on that.
Okay.
So, Gnome Bullion Saver on Twitter must have been a few months ago, where he tweeted, "Dang, if this modern art can sell for this many millions of dollars, how much will this Wojak sell for?" But I think the value is, like you could say, these Wojak memes are art because of the virtuously owning the libs, and also have
right,
and also have some utility because we're not being ruled by we're fighting back against these postmodernists, anti-Anglo-Christian, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
So
but that has value within a very select market,
right?
In terms of Twitter users, right?
Well, not necessarily. What was in Mueller's indictment? The Borgar meme?
Was it really?
No. In Mueller's indictment of these 12 Russians the other day, I'll post the text. He actually posted.
Yeah, please do.
About shit posting. It was literally in the indictment. He said, so-and-so users he actually worded infiltrated the international meme community. Here, I'll post it right now. So this isn't just to the realms of Twitter. These people are actually mad that this is happening.
So just to touch on this whole idea that, well, what if art itself as an establishment has been commercialized. Actually, the last page 19, there's also, he says, before this other possibility, that the frenziedness of technology may entrench itself everywhere to such an extent that someday, throughout everything technological, the essence of technology may come to presence in the coming to pass of truth. That's a Heidegger way of saying, what if like the virus just spreads to literally everything? Like if everything is technified, if everything is made to stand as a standing reserve, then it's like, how do you get out of that one?
Right.
His warning is like, boy, oh boy, I really wish that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you can see where that's going pretty quickly.
Yep. Yeah, he even says like, such a realm is art, but certainly only if reflection on art for its part does not shut its eyes to the consolation of truth after which we are questioning. So he's like, you have to have good art that questions technology, and you have to reflect upon that art about technology. Like there has to be like all these tiers of thought that you go through to like make sure that you're really staying on top of it. And I'm not sure that there's even art like that in the first place, much less that we would be able to like address it in such a way. But first, we have a viewer question. My good friend, not really good friend at all, Cocky Corvid, has asked me if Alexius Ocasio-Cortez has a coochie redistribution program instituted, will she win your support? Hashtag coochie socialism. The way her eyes are make me uncomfortable. Is it worth considering? The way her eyes look makes me uncomfortable, so that's a no.
She's not very memeable, so I'm gonna have to pass. I think the Democrat Party could have come up with some better operative.
In terms of coochie redistribution, or just in general?
Oh, just in general. In redistribution, I don't want to go anywhere near the Bronx, or unless, yeah, I'm probably not too interested.
I mean, as long as it's not hers, I'm fine with it, I guess. If there's some general form of redistribution.
If it's like locally centered, right? So like it would be like internal to a state, right?
Yeah. Or even within a congressional district, we could do that.
Realistically?
Yeah, these DC journalists need brown women from the Bronx ASAP.
They do.
True.
They really do. Like, get on that, right, folks? If you want to get elected really easily, you know how to do it.
the MGTOW Bernie Sanders.
I'm getting really upset that we haven't finished the N-word.
Yeah, guys finish that.
I put an I in there.
I put the G.
We got the I and we got the G and we got the second G, and we're looking to complete Exodia in the mentions, folks. Just like one more thing about art. He says, thus questioning, we bear witness to the crisis that in our sheer preoccupation with technology, we do not yet experience the coming to presence of technology. In our sheer aesthetic blindness, we no longer guard and preserve the coming to presence of art. Yet the more questioningly we ponder the essence of technology, the more mysterious the essence of art becomes. The closer we come to danger, the more brightly do the ways into the saving power begin to shine, and the more the questioning we become. For questioning is the piety of thought, which basically means like, I'm going to have to think on this for a little longer, but I'll get back to you later.
Right.
I do think that good art and a good reflection of art and a good sort of like intellectual joie de vivre around questioning technology and making sure we're going in the right way is possible.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's likely, but
how much does art, what is art to an aesthetic? Like, there's so much of this aesthetic on our right-wing Twitter that would it be considered a form of art? I'm not sure the exact definitions.
To be honest, like as soon as I finished reading that, that's what I was thinking, where it's like
an aesthetic.
It's an aesthetic. It's an established aesthetic. Like we like to call our tweets content. I like to call them content because that's just sort of like the lingo I've fallen into. But you can think about it as like these shit posts and these ways of like pushing acceptable boundaries and these ways like even the idea of like pressing F for a suspended account, right? Like that's a ritualistic thing, and like it's a thing you take part in.
See my last post on Twitter.
Just slam that alt tab, boy. Dude, what the fuck? Oh, I just misspelled the name. Help. Somebody help. Really makes you think. Holy crap, the Port Eagles is following 40 accounts? Oh my god. Okay, I'm going to read this out loud. During November 2016, the conspirators used Guccifer 2.0 to quote, shit-post, end quote, over 16,000 times online. The post contained both domestic and foreign memes, as well as 514 separate incidences of a post consisting solely of LOL or LMAO. Subpoint A, on or about November 18th, 2016, the conspirators created a meme known as, quote, Borger, which was then combined with existing viral media to infiltrate the international meme community. These conspirators did, on or about November 28th, 2016, create the meme Soup Time, in which a frog steals money from his mother, diverting the funds to instead purchase soup. Nice. I remember Soup. I remember Soup Time.
I replied to it with a meme.
I gotta see this, actually. Yep. Actually, buy soup like a boss. Soup Time. But in order, like, and I'm not convinced that we're like showing a way in which we can develop as humanity. But if pushing boundaries works, then I guess it works.
Yeah, if shit posting will get more right wing or more better people in office or a better meta political environment, it can be bad.
Ooh, we've got a real actual fucking text question here. Serenity, which is at SPZ Cled, says, do you think we experience more interference from technology insofar as we realize it only as a standing reserve? So that's sort of like, do we view technology itself as a standing reserve?
Yes.
I think we don't look at it critically because of that, if that makes sense, right? Like, we're not looking very closely at the idea of like, okay, so what is technology doing to us and what are we doing with technology? We just see it as like, there's my phone and there's the tool and I see it as potential power and then I exercise the power and that's it. Right? I think so, yeah, to be honest.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I would say our base from which we observe technology is not stable because you look at a chair differently than you look at the anime tibby on the timeline. But both are a form of technology, but one gives you the dopamine hit and one doesn't. It's just so our base from which we view things, we're not just like always constant the same way we look at things technology-wise. So we're going to view certain technologies differently just based upon what they do. But do we look at all technology?
Well, and it's what we've done in that instant, right? Because if you're really craving anime titty and you see one pop up on the TL, you know, that provides more worth to you than maybe a chair would in that moment, right?
Right, but I think it's also this degree of like, we think of the chair and the anime titty at the same category where they're standing reserve, right? Like they're both viewed as a potential to derive pleasure or energy, or like energy can be a form of pleasure or whatever. But we look at this technology and we're like, what can it do for me and what stuff can it do? And that's it. And that's how we look at it because it's standing reserve. And I think it sort of bars us from thinking critically about technology as a whole.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, cool. Question fucking answered, boys. Put a bow on it. All right. We're coming up on 8 o'clock. This was just the first show. I don't know if anyone else has anything to say